Ron Shine, board porn. Welcome.
Thanks, Dave.
Gla-
Great to see you again.
Gladly. Sorry I botched the last one, man. I feel so terrible.
No worries at all.
Dude, I ser
Gives me a reason to
what?
wait. Are you day drinking there?
It's 6 p.m. That's not
Oh,
the
okay.
daytime. That's plenty well into the evening hours. It's sparkling water
Yeah.
too. So,
Okay.
um, well, okay, so we'll get straight into it. Chaz and I caught a lot of flack last week for not fully sympathizing with the plight of New Yorkers and what they're experiencing with coronavirus. Set me straight. What's the scene like both in the city and out in Rockaway? Start wherever you want.
Okay. So city first. I mean, ground zero. Obviously, more infections than anywhere in the world. More deaths of it than any city in the world. We're basically the capital of this crap right now, unless we do find out that Wuhan ended up having a lot more fatalities and cases than they ever said they did, which it's coming out more and more that it sounds like that they may have had up to 100,000 people pass,
Insane.
which is insane. But realistic, given what we're dealing with, it's a mess here. It's weird. You look outside, it looks normal. Everything's quiet. People are not obviously going about their business, but today was a sunny day with temperatures in this like lower 60s, and people were in public parks and beaches and boardwalks like crazy. You wouldn't know something's wrong, but I think everybody's home. Everybody's crazy with this. Everybody's bored and just feels like they need to get out of the house. But then you're watching them, and I'm watching them walk on the boardwalk and bike paths and things like that, and it's completely it's too much. It gets you. When you see what's going on here, it makes your skin crawl when you see people too close to each other.
So,
um,
so you work in the city
I work in the
and you
city.
travel
Yep.
from Rockaway
Yep, which is also part of the city of New York, but the commute is a good hour to 2 hours depending on the day and the
on
traffic
the sub
each
on the
way.
subway.
Subway is probably an hour and 15 minutes to an hour and 30, depending on connections and trains, or longer if things get bad. I take a bus that goes almost door to
Okay,
door to where I work in Midtown, and so I'm at the whim of traffic.
got it.
Yeah,
And when did you stop going into the office?
March 12th was my last day.
So it's been a full month.
So yes, so it's just shy of a full month,
And
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 yeah.
tell me about how closely has this tragedy hit for you? Do you know anybody who's been infected or afflicted?
So I've known a number of both friends and clients that have been affected, inflicted. I lost a 42-year-old client who has was leaves behind his wife and four children. And the whole thing is weird because so many people are passing that it's quiet. You're not seeing like, not that you'd expect big announcements anytime anybody passes, but it's just so much of it is kind of getting swept under the rug. But everybody now knows somebody who is sick, was sick, or and it's gotten to the point where most people know somebody firsthand who passed. So it's large enough without being overwhelming, but it's like this invisible enemy that we're all afraid of here in a
Right.
way that I think it hasn't touched a lot of other areas of the country in the same way.
Why do you think that you saw so many people out and about today? If it has touched nearly every person there and they all know somebody,
Yeah.
why do you think they're out and about still?
I think everybody goes, I'm going to go out and go to the park and walk around and thinking that that's their good idea, that nobody else is going to have that idea.
Right.
And they get there and they see a full parking lot and they're like, well, I'm already here, so might as well do it. It's the same thing with the beaches and the boardwalk and surfing. We're seeing more surfers than we would see on some summer days, or at least it's equal to high summer holiday days. And I think it's because a lot of people just have nothing to do, and like, good idea, I'll go out there. You're not going to catch it out in the water. Same thing, ditto, the people walking on the boardwalk think that, I'll go out, get some fresh air, I'll walk the boardwalk. And meanwhile, if you pull up a surf cam in Rockaway, and you could check it on the surf cam rewind, go anytime around midday today, and you just watch crowds of people walking by on the boardwalk both directions, going right by each other. And forget 6 feet; they're not even 3 feet apart. It's just nuts.
I wonder if you'll see a new spike in cases because it's kind of hit this. People got real freaked out and everybody went inside for a while.
Yeah.
And so maybe there was less transfer for a week or two, but now we're coming out of it and people feel like they have a certain level of safety again, like a false sense of security. And then we'll see another spike.
Oh, yeah. I think we're going to see periods of
Yeah.
spikes, and the only thing that's going to get it under control are really, really heavy-handed tactics like what China's employing, like what Google and Apple are working on right now. The app that's going to track us and alert us when somebody that's infected is near us or came into contact with us. So
Yeah.
it's freaky. I mean, this is straight out of conspiracy theorist nightmares.
I know. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, on the kind of infringement on civil liberties? Because that was one of the things that Chaz and I were talking about last week was, yes, public safety is, the highest priority, but
Yeah.
does this set a precedent for future actions where things aren't maybe as dire as they are now, but because we've already broken this limit of what's okay, when it's okay to impinge upon our civil liberties, can they enforce that again in the future or just bust it out whenever? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think they can. What I think is interesting is countries where they and cities, even where the leaders of those cities and countries are completely anti big establishment and anti, the like the deep state, the conspiracy stuff, where they're not about impinging individuals' rights, are doing these same types of lockdowns, and they're ordering it. I mean, they're seeing no other alternative. I saw the number when we spoke yesterday. The number of overall deaths in the U.S. was pinged at 16,400. As of today, it's over 20,000.
Whoa.
And that was because I picked up the number early
Yeah.
yesterday. By late day, they released 18,000
Okay.
something, and today we're over 20,000 deaths. That's while what is it? 90% of the country is on lockdown of some sort. So, you know, imagine that number, and that's the first death in the U.S. that is being attributed and being counted was February 29th. So effectively, just a month and a half, not even a month and a half,
Right.
we've had that many deaths. Imagine how bad that would have been had they not put any of these steps into
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
It's
Tell me about the mission that you went on today. That sounded like quite the ordeal.
it's really funny. I went on a strike mission. So when my mother passed 3 years ago, my brother and I inherited the house we grew up in, and we've been very slowly working on it and renovating it and trying to figure out if we're going to keep it forever as a family or sell it. We don't want to rent it. We don't want to become landlords, anything like that. But it's something that we're both keeping and working on, and we slowly go out and work on it together. And we had I bought paper towels, like big loads of paper towels when we were initially doing the cleaning and stuff. And unfortunately, those paper towels, there's about 60 rolls of like the highest quality triple ply Bounty that are in our garage out there. Well, they were right next to the bird seed that we would put in the outside bird feeders, and the mice got into it, and everything is peppered with mice poo,
Oh,
which in and of itself is gross. But when we're dealing with coronavirus, we don't want to also deal with the hantavirus, which I wouldn't have even probably thought twice about. I would have thought, okay, we could just shake this off and we'll be okay. But my brother, one of his college roommates, died of hantavirus, which I think it's hantavirus. I want to make sure I got the right one, but he got from cleaning his attic of mice poop. Um, so
whoa.
yeah, it's one of these things
So
where
you,
it's now in my head, and so
if I mean,
so I
if it wasn't hentavirus, you would develop some brand new COVID-20.
oh yeah,
Some new
yeah.
disease that gets sprouted out of all of this. So you
Yeah.
lost 60 rolls of paper towels.
I left them there. I told my brother if he's more comfortable using them, because we had so many cleaning products in there in the house and stuff that we've been slowly chipping away at with cleaning the house.
Yeah.
That because it was a house that went unlived in for years, and it was also my mom had like a ton of cats, and we were just like cleaning everything out, and so that we had something like I don't know 20 tubes of those. The bleach wipes. So like all the things you can't buy in
Yeah.
stores, we had them stocked up there. Part of them were ones that were legacy leftover from when my mom was alive, and part of them were ones we went out and bought for the purposes of cleaning the place. So it's our like little place where we go when we're like, I really wish I had this. Oh yeah, we probably have some out there. So took the ride out today for Bounty because you can't get paper towels anywhere, and the only thing I've been able to find is once every couple of weeks I could get a roll, 3-pack rolls of the Trader Joe's ones, which they're basically the same consistency as toilet paper.
Yeah.
So they get wet and they crumble apart. And yeah, I know first world problems
No.
that we don't have.
No, but it is. It's a real deal, man.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so you live in Rockaway, you live across the street
Yeah.
from the beach, is it?
Live across the street from so I live 1 block over from the beach. So
Gotcha.
between my block and the beach is there's these towers that are lower income. They're fixed income towers where it's filled generally with a lot of teachers, firefighters, police officers, stuff like that. So that's the only thing between my backyard and the beach.
So
which is
what I wanted to hear you speak on
Yeah.
is there's a lot of people listening right now who think they can still go to the beach. They can still go surf because
Yeah.
they're not putting anybody at risk. Like they're probably not interacting with any other humans, and they can go surf, come back, and not put themselves at risk or anybody else. What's your view on that? As somebody who lives at the beach, how do you feel about seeing what you said? It's as crowded now
Yeah.
as it is in the summertime sometimes. So what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah. I think it's a really see. I've gotten a lot of heat over this on my Instagram, just posting things about this. But I feel like it's one of the most insensitive things people are doing is coming to the beach from all over the city while this is going on. While we're in this small little environment, Rockaway is a peninsula. It's a peninsula in the form of a barrier beach. It's a pain in the ass to get to from anywhere. The people that are coming in, it's predominantly Brooklyn. It's just Brooklyn is the most populous place in the city, so it's where most of the people live and young adults live and work. Despite what people think about living on the beach, Rockaway is one of the most affordable places you can live in all of New York City. Either rent or buy a home. You can't find cheaper property anywhere. It's like the forgotten hamlet of New York City, where it was an add-on bought from another county for the city to dump its vagrants way back when. And it's very much kept that presence. The only time we got attention from the city was post 2001, when we had one of the, about a month after September 11th, or a couple months after September 11th, a plane crashed here full of people that was on the way to Dominican Republic and landed in a neighborhood, taking out people on the ground as well. So we got a little bit of attention from the city. Then after obviously Superstorm Sandy, we got a lot of attention from the city. They rebuilt the boardwalk. But once a year, a politician will come out here, make a stand, make some grand speech, and then we're supposed to put in jetties that run the length of Rockaway pretty much to protect the barrier beach that we are. And that was supposed to be after Hurricane Sandy, shortly after, and that was 2011, 2012, I guess. We're still waiting. Here we are, 2020, and it was supposed to start, I believe, this coming fall, but I'm sure that'll be pushed back because of this.
Gotcha.
If the government still has the money to do it. So
insensitivity of the
insensitivity. Well, so what we saw was when Hurricane Sandy hit, and so many of us lost our homes and were flooded out and lost half our belongings, things like that. The very next day, people were showing up in cars to go surfing from outside of Rockaway, while Rockaway was just in total devastation. It looked like total devastation. Cars upturned, all houses were, tilted, sand 2 feet deep all over everything, and pieces of boardwalk. We had a piece of boardwalk pierce our garage door and go through it. It was kind of, I mean, we could see all this happening. It was the scariest thing. I was at home with my family during Hurricane Sandy, watching the water rise 7 feet around our house was no picnic.
Yeah.
So when we saw people come down afterwards and surf right after, it was like, it just felt really, really yucky. It felt like somebody going out and surfing during a war.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, what are you doing?
Right.
Surfers are selfish, though. We all are. And my wife said to me while I'm preaching that people shouldn't surf here, and I'm not surfing. She said, if you were unmarried and you didn't have kids, would you care? Would you still be surfing if we lived in Brooklyn? And I'm thinking, and I might. I don't know. I'd like to think I'd be more sensible than that.
Yeah.
Especially because the other thing is, it's not about clogging the water, which the water is just clogged, but it's about everybody that heads out in a car. If something happens to that car, whether it breaks down or somebody blows a red light and blows into you, you're going to take away necessary services that should be directed towards helping people that are victims of this pandemic,
right,
first and foremost. And once this is well and over, absolutely fine, everything goes. But it's just weird. Again, the other thing that's different than California, because when I post things about this, I get a lot of Californian flack, is that in California, a lot of the seaside communities, living across from the beach is like as expensive as it gets. Whereas here, the poor live on the beach.
Right.
And what I paid for this house that I live in wouldn't get me a nice 1-bedroom in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It just wouldn't.
Right.
And that's a fact. And what I paid in rent before I bought this house wouldn't get me any apartment, not even a studio in Brooklyn,
right,
in any of the fashionable neighborhoods that everybody comes in from. So there's that. So there is the taking advantage component where it's like, we feel like, okay, you go back to your cozy Disneyland where you're surrounded by restaurants and Whole Foods, and we just had our local CVS, the only CVS in the neighborhood, just shut down.
Oh, really?
Shut down like that.
Why? Because they can't get supplies, or
don't know. I don't know. I'm guessing maybe people got sick. That's usually why some of the places have been closing down, when staff get sick so they could clean out. But I haven't heard exactly why. But that just shut down the other day, and it's one of these things where the grocery store, still, you go in and it's like a free for all, where there's no rhyme. Here there's no rules within the grocery store. It's like everybody's standing right next to each other. People are walking around like it's just a regular shopping day. It's weird. There's almost a sense here. Some people are understandably very concerned and very scared, but then there's the others that almost, oh, it's not going to get me. It'll get the next guy,
right,
type thing. They're just kind of, you're reaching for a salad or a steak, and somebody reaches over your shoulder, and it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I know. I said this to you yesterday, but I feel like if we had a black light that could just illuminate where the virus was floating through the air on surfaces, you absolutely wouldn't go outside. You would heed the CDC's warnings, and you would stay inside for the 2 weeks, knowing whatever I saw outside in that black light would die in a 2-week period. I would stay inside and tell everybody else to do the same thing. And that's essentially what we're dealing with. We just can't see it.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I think when it gets to the point where they do the antibody test and where they can really see who has it, who had it, things like that, I think we're going to see huge chunks of the population in certain areas that were infected. Because the other thing is that a good number, and they don't know the exact percentage of infected individuals, are totally asymptomatic. I had a client that he and his 2 kids were asymptomatic. His wife had the mildest flu symptoms. They were all tested positive for COVID. They were in the initial cluster. That's one of the clusters that started in New York City in a little town called New Rochelle, just outside of New York City. And he was like known as Patient Zero in Manhattan. He was a lawyer in a small trust and estates law firm. And his whole community got it. It was a Jewish community, and I guess everybody that was affiliated with that temple was tested, and a lot of people ended up getting the spread. So,
Crazy.
but yeah, so and also I don't know if you saw the study today from Iceland, because Iceland's in a unique position to sort of look at these things in a way that few countries can. They were the first country, and probably the only country on earth at this point, that did a full genome scanning of the entire country, the entire population. So if you're Icelandic, you could go on their government website and basically plug in your name and plug in the name of somebody you met at a bar, and you can find out how you're related to them.
Wow.
So you get to see if you're fifth cousins or sixth cousins.
Right.
It's a really kind of cool thing. And I at one point I had a friend over there, and I was over there a few times, but at one point I was over there and I asked her to show me how she's connected, to the obvious ones, Bjork, and it's funny because you can actually see the connection.
That's amazing.
So they just did a test, and their test was saying something to the effect of, they say around 50% of the randomly tested people that tested positive for it were totally asymptomatic.
Oh, wow.
Which means that, it's good. It's building herd immunity, but it's also scary because, if you don't know if you're going to be asymptomatic or not.
Exactly. Your friend, or not your friend, but your client who died, who was 43, was he in good health otherwise?
42. It's one of these where it's hard to ask.
Okay.
I haven't heard anything, and maybe I don't think any news article is going to say anything on it, but I don't know.
Okay.
And most people, unless you're really close to them, you don't know. And there are people that have issues that you just never hear about until it comes up in conversation. So
right.
This is one where it's, I don't know. But then again, star athletes are dying young with this. I think, there's probably a genetic component to it. There's probably a luck component to it, a level of infection. Who knows,
When was the last time you surfed?
Just over 2 weeks ago. So it would have been about 2.5 weeks ago, and March 27th.
Why did you decide that would be your last session?
So I hadn't gone in for about a week and change before that, and there were waves every day. And what I was seeing was every time I flip on the cameras, just packed lineups, packed boardwalk, packed beach, because we had a run of really nice weather and really fun waves. And so I waited. I just wasn't going to surf, and I'm like, one of these days, people just won't be out there. People will get over it. They'll, have gotten their fix. And I finally went out one evening with my neighbor across the street. We were in contact, and called him and said, let's meet at this jetty. He actually texted me and said, no, go to this other one. I checked it out. So we went down, we're surfing, and it's a place where nobody ever surfs. It doesn't really break. I mean, I'll send you a video. It's a shitty wave. It's a shitty wave amongst shitty waves. And a guy paddles right out towards us. Even though nobody ever surfs there, there's so many peaks all over the place, so many other jetties. He paddles straight towards us, and I did one of these, beat it. And he was kind. He got it, and he was like that, and he paddled down the beach, and paddled to about, I don't know, a couple hundred yards down, where there was a little crowd, like 10 people that were sitting on top of each other. And
wild.
I'm just. Yeah, it's just wild.
So why'd you decide that you wanted to surf after that?
I said, okay, first of all, I'm risking myself every time I leave the house. Second of all, going to this where I know I'm going to be out someday and somebody's going to paddle and sit on me. And what am I going to do? Get in a physical fight because some idiot wants to get too close to me because they see me get waves at a place that they've never surfed. And, I'm only surfing to get away from people.
Right.
And it's just one of these things. Then the boardwalk itself gets crowded. And if it's offshore, I waited till it was onshore that day. But if it's offshore and you're sitting in the water and there are crowds on the beach and crowds on the boardwalk, if it's really airborne, as they're saying,
yeah, it's a lot of risk.
It's an issue.
It's a lot of risk for a crappy session.
Oh, it's risk for a good session,
Totally.
And somebody said, early on, I read something, and they were saying if somebody gave you a bag of M&Ms or Skittles, and they said, two of the M&Ms in this bag are going to kill you, or might kill you. Are you going to eat from that bag and take that chance, or are you going to,
Right.
to skip it. And then so I decided to not eat the M&Ms,
Good.
and it kills me because it's right
You
there.
love M&Ms. You're an addict.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been informative, and I think the more people I talk to, I wasn't taking it nearly seriously enough, at least for the first few weeks. And now that I have a couple of different touchstones of people who have been directly affected and just more perspective on it, I think it's given me a much more sympathetic view. And also I'm curtailing my behavior, because of it. So this has been great.
Yeah, it's tough because, again, it's not hitting everywhere with the same ferocity as it's hitting here. And it's one of these things where, even though it's hitting here, you go outside, you don't feel it. You just feel the eeriness, and you see a neighbor and they see you, and you either do one of these where you kind of take a step back from one another, or just coming out of the house. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, we don't want, even though it's not that tragic here yet in Southern California, we don't want it to be like it is in New York City. And so this information is helpful, and hopefully people will abide. So, well,
I think you guys are lucky you got shut down before things were too hectic there, before things got really bad. We took too long to do it. It was already bad, and it was already widespread by the time we shut down. So there's nothing you could do. And now the only thing we could do is fight it by staying home.
Right.
That's it. I took a big risk today for Bounty. And, it's one of these things where first of all, good luck with trying to get anything like that at a grocery store here. But it was one of these things where I just said, we're running out of paper towels. I have 2 young kids. We go through paper towels like crazy. And, so I said to my wife on the way home, she was with me, and I said, I think we're going to have to start going with cloth and washing. I said, maybe it's a good thing.
Yeah, it could be.
It's environmentally better.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, enjoy Easter tomorrow.
Yep. You too. Likewise. Yeah. Enjoy.
Yeah, I'll see you on the internet.
And see you on the internet. And we'll hopefully get a surf in one of these days when things clear up. Maybe in the fall. Maybe. We'll see if I get out there.
It's a low priority for me at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, surfing with me? I get it.
Surfing in general.
Yeah. I know.
All right. Thank
you.
Stay
safe over there. Yeah.
I will.
Take care,
you
David.
too.